Before they ruled living rooms, before they lit up arcades, before pixels became legends. There was only an idea: what if we could play with electricity? This is a story of imagination turned into code, of silicon turned into culture. A tale of brilliant minds, epic failures, glorious revivals, and the digital adventures that redefined how generations play, learn, and connect. In this episode, we plug into the power-up saga that shaped a multi-billion-dollar empire. Welcome to the history of video games. The primitive pixels, the earliest flickers of interactive entertainment, didn't look like much: dots, lines, sometimes just light bouncing back and forth. But in laboratories and universities, pioneers saw more than just lines. They saw play. One of the first sparks ignited with Tennis for Two, crafted by physicist William Higginbotham. It was simple, a dot bouncing on an oscilloscope screen, but it opened minds to interactive screens. Not long after, computer scientist Steve Russell introduced Space War, a game coded on a massive PDP-1 mainframe. Two ships, maneuvering through gravity, blasting each other with photon torpedoes. The age of digital competition had begun. The arcade awakens, then came the explosion, the arcade era. Pong didn't just bounce a pixel back and forth, it bounced the entire industry into life. Created by Atari's Nolan Bushnell and engineer Al Alcorn, Pong was easy to understand and even easier to obsess over. Arcades sprouted in shopping malls and street corners, glowing havens of sound and color. Space Invaders stormed into Japan and swept across the globe, followed by Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and Galaga. Each quarter dropped was a vote of excitement, a cry for more. Home sweet console. As arcades thrived, another revolution brewed quietly: the home console. Atari's 2,600 gave players joysticks, cartridges, and couch-friendly competition. Suddenly, you didn't have to stand in line at the arcade, you brought the arcade home. Soon, the market flooded. Dozens of companies launched consoles. But with low-quality games and market confusion, the bubble was doomed. And then, it burst. The great crash in the early 1980s, disaster struck. The market collapsed. Investors pulled out. Games like E.T. for the Atari, infamously rushed and reviled, symbolized the fall. For a moment, it looked like video games were a passing fad, just another toy fad fading away. But not all hope was lost. Enter the Nintendo era. Then came a game-changer from the East. Nintendo introduced the Famicom, later known worldwide as the NES. With Mario running through mushroom kingdoms and Duck Hunt zapping on CRT screens, video games were reborn. Nintendo brought order to chaos, quality control, iconic characters, legendary soundtracks. Zelda, Metroid, and Mega Man weren't just games, they were sagas. And gamers? They were back. The 90s console wars. The 90s brought a clash of titans, Nintendo versus Sega. Sonic the Hedgehog raced against Mario, and Sega's Genesis asked the world, does what Nintendent? This was the golden age of creativity. Fighting games like Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat pushed limits, and censorship debates. New genres emerged, stories deepened, gameplay expanded. Then came a new player with a powerful plan. Sony and the Polygon Age. Sony's PlayStation introduced cinematic storytelling, 3D worlds, and soundtracks that stuck with you forever. Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, these weren't just games. They were interactive experiences. Technology advanced rapidly. CDs replaced cartridges. Graphics transformed. Gamers demanded more, and got it. Online worlds and beyond. Soon, the world connected. LAN parties evolved into online empires. Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, and PC multiplayer created digital communities. World of Warcraft, Counter-Strike, Call of Duty, players weren't just playing, they were living second lives. Gaming became social, competitive, massive. Indies, mobile, and modern masterpieces. Today, anyone with a dream and a laptop can build the next big game. Indie titles like Undertale, Hollow Knight, and Celeste prove passion beats budget. Mobile gaming put millions of arcades in pockets. Angry Birds, Clash of Clans, and Among Us showed the world that play is universal. And cinematic games like The Last of Us, God of War, and Red Dead Redemption 2 have elevated games into art. 10 fun facts about the history of video games. 1. The first video game wasn't meant to be fun. Physicist William Higginbotham created Tennis for Two in 1958 to entertain visitors at a nuclear lab, not to start a gaming revolution. 2. Pong was almost an accident. Pong was just a test project. Engineer Al Alcorn created it as a training exercise. When test players refused to stop playing, Atari knew they had a hit. 3. Space Invaders caused a coin shortage in Japan. The game was so wildly popular that arcades ran out of 100 yen coins, prompting the government to increase production. 4. The first Easter egg was a programmer's rebellion in Adventure, 1980. For the Atari 2600, developer Warren Robinette secretly inserted his name because Atari didn't credit creators. 5. AT was so bad, it got buried in the desert. Atari's ET. The Extraterrestrial was rushed for Christmas 1982 and flopped so hard that thousands of unsold copies were buried in a New Mexico landfill, later unearthed in 2014. 6. Pac-Man was inspired by pizza game designer Toru Watani. Came up with Pac-Man's shape after removing a slice from a pizza. That's how gaming's most iconic character was born. 7. The NES saved the industry with a toy trick. After the 1983 crash, Nintendo rebranded the Famicom as the Nintendo Entertainment System and sold it with Rob the Robot, making it look more like a toy than a game console. 8. Tetris was made behind the Iron Curtain. Tetris was created in 1984 by Alexei Pajitnov, a Soviet software engineer, and became one of the first games exported legally from the USSR. 9. The first online console game was in the 80s. The Sega Dreamcast is often credited with pioneering online console gaming, but Sega actually tested online play with the Sega Netlink back in 1996. 10. Mobile gaming is now bigger than consoles and PC today. Mobile games like Candy Crush and Genshin Impact make up over 50% of the global gaming market, showing just how far gaming has evolved. What started as bouncing pixels has become a pillar of global culture. Games are more than entertainment. They're education, art, expression, and connection. And the next chapter? Still loading. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next level of this digital journey.